So today's video is a little bonus upload for you all, and it involves bringing back the trusty old spinner wheel to make some of my coloring decisions. I selected 6 techniques that I've seen featured on Coco Instagram, popped them into an online spinner wheel, and then spun the wheel 3 times. Whatever 3 techniques the spinner wheel landed on, I had to use them all together in one coloring page. Now you might be wondering why I specifically chose techniques featured on Coco Instagram. That's because the page you're going to see me color today comes from the new limited edition Coco and Ohuhu coloring kit. Before I share this adorable kit with you, I did want to quickly address something first. Some of you may remember that I've previously said that I couldn't really see myself coloring a Coco book or illustration. However, since then, I've realized that as an online creator with a growing audience that I'm so grateful for, I really need to prioritize taking the time to learn more, try things for myself, and then I can form my own opinion. Coloring is such a subjective hobby at the end of the day. We all have different preferences and different experiences when it comes to brands, products, and artists. What works really well for someone might not necessarily work for someone else. So when Ohuhu shared the vision behind this collaboration, I knew I had to experience it for myself and then share it with you all because, yeah, the message, it really does resonate with me. So the message behind this collaboration is all about connecting coloring with emotional awareness. I think it's really cool that the concept begins with the packaging. On the outside here, you'll notice that there's some colorful raindrops that are supposed to represent the ups and downs of our emotions. And then as you lift the lid, a vibrant rainbow appears. And I know this is gonna sound so corny, but I like to think this symbolizes that even after periods of difficulty and hard times, you can always find joy again, which I just love this representation so much. And then obviously, as you can see inside the kit, we have an awesome selection of 48 different markers from Ohuhu's classic Honolulu B marker range. But, this happens to me every time I swatch out a new set of alcohol markers. I somehow managed to mix up 2 of my swatch colors, so that's a problem for future Cure to Fix. I'm emotionally aware that I'm feeling frustration right now. You then get this really cute iridescent sticker sheet. This penguin right here, it's going straight on my sketchbook after this video. And then you also get a large bleed-proof sheet. I've always appreciated that Ohuhu's alcohol marker sets have come with bleed-proof sheets, but I've always wished they were the tiniest bit bigger. So when I saw this, I said, hallelujah. And then finally, we have the Cozy Collection coloring book. I definitely think that one of my top favorite features of this book is the little mood check-in that you get at the bottom of every single page. I've been made aware there's no right or wrong way to use it. It's simply there to encourage you to notice how you're feeling, track your emotions, and then express them through color. So what I've personally decided that I'm gonna do with this book, I'm gonna record how I'm feeling before I start coloring using one specific color, and then after the coloring session, I'm going to use a different color to track how I'm feeling afterwards. I think it'll be really interesting to see how my emotions shift throughout the coloring process for every single page, and it'll also be interesting to see whether my finished pages reflect how I'm feeling that day. So now that we're all very well acquainted with this coloring kit, let's see which 3 coloring techniques the spinner wheel chose for me to combine into one page. So the first technique the spinner wheel landed on is what I'm referring to as the light ray effect, which I saw featured in this particular Coco reel here. I have tried something similar in the past with, let's just say, mixed success. So whilst I was really excited to give it another go and hopefully do a better job, there was definitely a sprinkling of fear in there. The second technique that the spinner wheel chose, by an absolute nosehair might I add, was dreamy clouds. This one was inspired by this Coco post here. And we all know I love myself some soft, whimsical, fluffy clouds in my pages, so I was excited for this technique to get chosen. And then finally, the third other technique the spinner wheel chose definitely struck a bit more fear into my colorist heart, and that was the sticker effect. This one has been on my to try list for such a long time, but I don't know, I've just always felt a little bit intimidated by it. So yes, this was another technique where part of me was excited to finally give it a go, and the other part was thinking, why couldn't the spinner wheel have chosen anything else? But it's really my fault because I put the option there. As I always do though, I didn't overthink it and I just dove straight into the coloring process. I actually ended up choosing the same illustration that was featured in the Dreamy Clouds post, and I did this on purpose so that I could use it as a bit of inspiration. And so my initial plan of action was to establish both the Dreamy Clouds and the light ray effect first. I did take a fair bit of creative license with both of these techniques because the idea I had in my head was to create a sort of day versus night juxtaposition, which I have seen many other colorists do before as well. For the Dreamy Clouds, I ended up opting for a darker, cool-toned color palette than in the Coco wire post. And because I wanted to convincingly portray a nighttime scene across half of the page, I also pulled in a few darker shades from my Ohuhu 120 Honolulu 2B set. That is probably something worth noting if you are thinking about picking up this kit. There aren't a huge number of darker values included in the color range, but personally I actually love this feature because I already own plenty of darker colors in my collection. I see this kit as more of a complementary set. One thing I learned very quickly about coloring in this book though is that although the paper is a fantastic thickness, it does not love being oversaturated with ink. Near the moon, I'd layered quite a few blue shades together and eventually the blue ink started bleeding into the yellow. I'm presuming this is because alcohol ink keeps moving through the paper while it's still wet. So if an area becomes oversaturated like I did, the ink can slowly travel into neighboring sections. The easiest way I found to avoid this throughout the rest of the coloring process was just to work with fewer layers where possible and give heavily inked areas a little bit more time to dry before continuing to build them up. Overall, I'd say that creating the day versus night effect actually wasn't too difficult. If you decide to give this a go for yourself though, my first tip would be to let one side dry completely before coloring directly beside it. That'll keep the line break between the day and night section super crisp and clean, and also reduces the chance of colors bleeding into one another like we saw previously. My second tip is to make sure your light and dark color palettes still have a similar value relationship. This is something I personally struggled with when I was coloring the grass. The green combination I chose for the daytime side ended up being a little too cool toned in comparison to the right side, and if anything, it should have been the other way around. So in the end, I just layered a warmer mid-tone green over the day side of the grass and bushes, and yeah, thankfully that helped bring everything together. The technique I struggled with the most though by far was definitely the sticker effect. This is one of those techniques that looks incredibly simple when someone else does it, but pulling it off yourself is much trickier than it seems. Because I wanted the bike riders to look like 3 individual stickers sitting on top of the finished scene, I deliberately didn't apply the light ray effect to them. The decision I do regret, however, was outlining the stickers with a black acrylic marker instead of a black fine liner. It's not that using the acrylic marker looks bad, but the nib is just so thick and I found it really difficult to get those crisp, clean edges that make stickers look convincingly die cut. I believe that's the right term. So as we always do, we just trust the process, we keep going, and I also added that soft grey shadow underneath each sticker like I'd seen in the original inspiration post. I then added all of the final finishing touches to the page page using a mix of colored pencils, acrylic markers, and gel pens. And yeah, I think those little finishing touches really help to elevate each of the 3 techniques as well as the page on a whole. And yeah, voila, the page was complete. I will say it was so interesting combining the sticker effect with the light ray effect. The spinner wheel definitely had my creative juices flowing in that regard, but although the sticker effect didn't quite turn out as I'd envisioned, I still think this is a really fun completed page. Now, I actually didn't fill in the mood check-in during the challenge because I wanted to do it together, face to camera. You know what I mean. I've decided that blue is going to represent how I'm feeling before I start coloring. And yesterday, I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty down bad. I'm currently in the middle of my luteal phase, which is always a emotionally tumultuous time. So I am going to fill in the little sad face. Make sure I'm not getting any bleed through on the other side. But after my coloring session, I did feel so much more fulfilled, which is honestly how I feel after completing most pages, even if there's aspects I'm not 100% happy with. Just that sense of accomplishment of finishing something. It always, yeah, very fulfilling emotion. So I'm going to use yellow as my post-coloring color. And I'm going to color in this little content face because that gives me that looks like the closest to the feeling of fulfillment for me. Cute! So what are my final thoughts on this coloring kit? I think it's pretty obvious, but I personally think it's great. A lot of you already know that I am such a big advocate for spreading more awareness about mental health and also using coloring as a tool to process difficult emotions or just simply slow down and check in with yourself. So yeah, I just love that this kit has been designed encouraging exactly that. If I was going to be super duper picky, I think it would have been great if this kit had included a colorless blender, just in case if this is someone's first alcohol marker kit. And I also would have loved if the packaging had been designed with horizontal storage in mind, because that is the best way to store your alcohol markers. You can do this with the set, have it propped up like that on your desk, but I think it would have been nice if you can't really carry it around horizontally, so it would have been nice if you could carry it horizontally. Those are 2 super tiny things though, so if this is something that interests you and looks like something you would like to pick up, I'll have all the information down in the description box below. Remember that this is a limited edition release, so if you are super keen to pick it up, you probably want to err on the side of sooner rather than later. I hope you enjoyed having a little extra cozy coloring content from me this week. I'll see you on the weekend for my usual upload, and until then, happy coloring friends, have a good day, have a good life, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!